rated T to M. Hey, want to hear a PC Game Pass ad? I'll take your silence as a yes. Want new games on day one like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or Stalker 2? I thought so. How about unlocking all the League of Legends champions when you link your Riot Games account? All for one low monthly price? Well, guess what? We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass or click the banner. Stalker 2 available November 20th, 2024. Game catalog varies by region and over time. And that's the end of the script.
Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times Union podcast driven by CDTA. How is it Thanksgiving already? This year is flying by. I'm Jessica Marshall with another episode of The Eagle. It shouldn't be much of a surprise that we're going to lead this episode off with some Turkey Day related news. For decades, Equinox provided thousands of meals for food-insecure Capital Region residents on Thanksgiving Day. This year, the Albany-based human services nonprofit ended that program due to funding issues. But the regional food bank stepped in and expanded the program. The Times Union's Steve Barnes joins me now on The Eagle. He's going to tell us more about that, and also for those who are fortunate enough to be able to go out for Thanksgiving, or those who want to have food prepared for them this holiday, what area restaurants and caterers are offering. All right, so let's start with the food bank, right? This is a change from previous years, right? This is an expansion. This is something new. What's going on there?
The food bank is really making an effort to reach as many people as it can, and they have a hugely ambitious plan to feed 150,000 people for Thanksgiving. There's two components of it. There's volunteers and chefs and staff from area restaurants are preparing finished meals that will be reheatable that are going primarily to seniors. So a variety of senior sites, the Mechanicville Housing Authority in Lawrence Commons, Lincoln Heights over in Schenectady, and Albany, Beltrone Living Center, and Bishop Broderick Apartments in Rensselaer County, Van Rensselaer Heights, and some others. So seniors at all of those sites will either be delivered to them or they'll be able to pick up finished meals and able to reheat. This is all happening on Saturday, the 23rd. And also on the 23rd, the food bank's other component of this, because it really is daunting to try to do so many prepared meals, they have massive amounts of donated food, raw ingredients for Thanksgiving, turkey, sides, and dessert that they will be distributing bags at more than a dozen locations in 6 counties: Albany, Schenectady, Rensselaer, Columbia, Greene, and Saratoga. And so people will be coming, starting again on Saturday, all through the day to pick up entire Thanksgiving packages that the food bank is putting together, led by their regional headquarters in Latham. And the goal, as I said, is 150,000. It's a remarkable effort that's being primarily driven by volunteers, because as in the past at Equinox, where people would go and use the huge kitchens at the Empire State Plaza Convention Center, now they're using restaurants and commercial sites, and even Questar, the high school BOCES food programs. They're cooking in multiple counties to be able to provide meals for those finished meals for seniors.
Wow, this is definitely kind of a sea change from, the way things were done in the past, right? I mean, why are so many people, so many local folks jumping onto this?
Yeah, they've understood the extent of the need, because before, yes, they could get hot food to people on Thanksgiving Day, but that was always Thanksgiving Day itself. The process would start earlier that week, but it was always on the day of. Here, because it's happening earlier, the seniors can either freeze their meals if they're getting finished meals on Saturday to reheat them on Thursday, or maybe they just want it Saturday. Maybe it's going to be big enough that they could have one and freeze the other half of it. But then the raw ingredients, those bags of Thanksgiving food, this allows them to reach an awful lot more people. Because if you're, Have you ever defrosted a turkey at home, Jess? Takes a while.
Yeah,
So
I haven't wanted to touch that.
yes, so it does take a while because they're big. And so if people are getting a frozen turkey on Thursday, they just put it in the fridge, and by Wednesday night, it'll be ready to be seasoned, pop it in the oven on Thursday morning, and all of their sides will be available to put together and prepare. And so this is a way to reach a significant, I mean, sure, Equinox fed thousands of people. It was an amazing program for decades. And a lot of people loved to contribute. That was as much a part of their Thanksgiving as their own family's meals. But here, you can feed more people, and they've identified that the need is very real. And one of the things that we've seen is other countries were quicker to address this than the United States, but the idea of loneliness being worse at the holidays. And so if you can find ways to bring people together, if you can say, hey, here's a bag of food, here's enough to feed 4 to 6 people, have your friends over. You know, if you're living alone, find some people and we'll provide you with that food. If you have the need, we can provide you with that.
Oh, that's great. That's really embodying the spirit of the season.
Yeah.
How do people find out more about how they can,
Well, the best place to go is regionalfoodbank.net, and it's there. Everything about Thanksgiving is there, and also there's been plenty of coverage in the Times Union. There will be more in the coming days, so people can also just go to the Times Union website and search for Regional Food Bank and Thanksgiving, and details will come up. Now, there are others who have found out that restaurants, because we're in a more fortunate position to be able to pay for our Thanksgiving meals, that restaurants, it used to be, when I first started covering this, maybe 17, 18 years ago, not quite 10% of people went out for Thanksgiving dinner. And this could be people who didn't want to cook, could be empty nesters, it could be, and places like the Desmond Hotel in Colony would always sell out for their huge Thanksgiving buffets. But more and more now, especially the people, the under 35s, the under 40s, are finding that they either want to go out, or B, they can get prepared food, reheatable food made for them by restaurants or caterers or even markets like Healthy Living Market up in Saratoga, Whole Foods in Colony. They have meal packages, so you don't have to do the whole thing. And some restaurants they're doing everything but the bird. So you cook the turkey, we'll do everything else. And there's even a food distribution company in Troy that will give you all of the peeled and chopped up vegetables for your sides to feed 12 to 14 people for about $80. And if you factor, it would take you 4 hours to do this stuff. You can get all of this stuff peeled, seeded, cut for you. You just need to cook it. Saves you all that prep time. So there's so many opportunities for people to, you can just get the pies if you just want the sides. I've been doing this list for a very long time. It's again on timesunion.com. Just search for table hopping or Thanksgiving. It'll pop up. And I now have more than 44 restaurants, markets, caterers, and others. Deadline's coming up. You know, some of them, the deadline will be as late as, say, Monday the 25th, but you do want to check in and see about your favorite place. Some places already sold out. I mentioned the Desmond earlier because they've been doing it so long. Everybody knows to go to the Desmond. Well, the Desmond has been sold out for Thanksgiving since the beginning of October.
I was going to say, if I had to bet, it would be somewhere, months ago, right?
Yes. But others are still available because more and more come on board and they realize, hey, this is a way to make money. And every year when I do this, I do get people complaining, saying, that's not fair. Restaurants should give them a paid day off so they could be with their family. Well, that's presuming a family situation that not everybody has. If you're fortunate enough to have a big brood that wants to gather together and somebody has the capacity to host and to make it all and then clean up afterwards, well, bless you, you are fortunate. But there are others who don't have family around, or it could be a couple of widows who, have recently lost their husbands and are looking for new routines, so they want to go together. Or some people aren't welcome at their families. And for others for whom Thanksgiving doesn't mean much, well, frankly, if you're a server, you're going to make a lot of money on Thanksgiving because these things, this is not cheap. I mean, the cheapest Thanksgiving dinner turkey plate I saw out there was $29.95, and that's Dee Dee's Tavern in Latham. But you can go up to some of the buffets, for heaven's sake. Up at the Sagamore in Bolton Landing, the buffet is $80. In the Hudson Valley, down at the Mohawk Mountain House, the Thanksgiving buffet is $160. And for kids, you've got kids. If I told you that your kid, 6 to 12, if you wanted to take them to the Mohawk Mountain House, it'd be $80, what would you say?
Yeah, my kids have a very picky palate, so it might not be worth the money in that case.
Well, what are the Marshalls doing? What are the Marshalls doing this year?
Well, the Marshalls are going to family. We do every year. It's a big family gathering. And this year, my family is trying something new. We are doing a vegan Thanksgiving. So no turkey. We'll see how that goes.
Well,
yeah. But it seems to me, as someone who fits in that demographic that you mentioned before about, someone preferring or going for like a prepared meal, so to speak, or not a prepared meal, but a meal that's like half prepared. Like the accessibility of Thanksgiving in the community seems to have, expanded significantly in the last couple of years. Is that something that you've noticed?
Sure. And there's so many more places doing it. This is the biggest list I've ever had with more than 43, 44 providers. And more people are interested and more people really think it's okay because, let's be honest, we've all had an awful lot of terrible turkey.
Yes.
Because turkey is hard. The bigger they are, the harder they are to cook correctly because if you pull it when the breast is nice and moist, the legs are underdone. If you wait until the legs are done, the breast is like particle board.
Yeah.
And so people will stuff it full of stuffing, which takes it even, actual stuffing instead of dressing on the side, takes even longer. It insulates it, makes it harder to cook. And then it sits on the counter for an hour and steeps. And then by the time you get to it, the only thing that's hot is the gravy because it was just cooked.
Yeah. Or you can stick that in the microwave easily.
Yes. And so, Thanksgiving for me, and I wrote about this repeatedly for the Times Union, but for me, Thanksgiving was not so much about the turkey. The tyranny of Norman Rockwell's Thanksgiving painting, telling everybody that Grandpa has to be the one carving the whole turkey. Well, that's not the best way to carve a turkey. Spatchcock the turkey, lay it out flat. It'll cook a lot faster, and it'll all be done correctly. But for me, for friends and I, we would do elaborate Thanksgiving dinners. Sometimes 10, 12 courses, each of us making a couple of different courses. And sometimes there would be themes like contemporary versions of things remembered from childhood. So instead of tuna noodle casserole, it would be seared ahi tuna on top of soy noodles.
Ooh.
We even did a crazy version of Frito pie once. And the only rule was no turkey. I eat turkey. It's my sandwich meat of choice.
Mm-hmm. Same.
But I don't necessarily, for me, Thanksgiving is spending time with people you care about over food. And if you don't have to prepare it, well, so much the better. And if you've got somebody who's skilled enough to do it and willing to do it, well, then help them afterwards by cleaning up.
Absolutely. And take home lots of leftovers.
Yes. One of my favorite Thanksgiving traditions at the Lucas Confectionery in Troy, they, starting at 6:00 on Thanksgiving night, the kitchen's not open, but they make Thanksgiving leftovers. They put out a spread that includes, thank you very much, Wonder Bread and mayonnaise. So you can go through the buffet line and make yourself a turkey sandwich, even if you had one 4 hours ago.
Oh, wow. That's a great thing.
It's a nice neighborhood feel, and there's free Thanksgiving leftovers. So if you just want more stuffing because you didn't get your carb earlier, well, then you can have more stuffing, or just, pick up a turkey leg and go sit at the bar and have a glass of wine.
That's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to repurpose leftovers there.
Yes.
I love it. Are there any like new fun Thanksgiving food trends or twists to the traditional Thanksgiving dinner that you're noticing?
Sure. Better Homes and Gardens magazine has a list of Thanksgiving trends, and the very top of it is global flavors. Now, not everybody around the globe celebrates Thanksgiving. As a matter of fact, maybe only a few countries have it. But why not use some of their culinary traditions on our traditional Thanksgiving food? So instead of a sweet potato casserole loaded with brown sugar and dotted with marshmallows, Better Homes and Gardens suggests using ginger glazed sweet potato casserole.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
And for corn, elote, Mexican street corn, make a Mexican street corn casserole.
Mm-hmm. That sounds wonderful.
Use sumac, that Middle Eastern spice, on Brussels sprouts, because Brussels sprouts are not going anywhere. They really, they're so popular in restaurant menus, and here they come at Thanksgiving. But try a different twist on that. Go ahead and, maybe use miso butter on your vegetables, or put a little Korean gochujang in your cranberry sauce. These will breathe new life into classic dishes, and yet it keeps the heart of the Thanksgiving tradition together.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm writing some of these ideas down.
For Steve Barnes' list of restaurants and caterers doing Thanksgiving meals, head on over to timesunion.com. While you're there, subscribe to the Table Hopping newsletter to get Capital Region food and dining news delivered directly to your inbox each week. Also, check out our special Capital Region Gives section at timesunion.com/gives. You will find some amazing stories of local residents, businesses, and organizations that are doing amazing things for the community. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll hear about the region's newest pro sports team, the New York Phoenix.
Why is healthcare so expensive? What's happening with climate change? And are elections safe? You can find answers to those questions and a lot more with Capital Confidential from me, Dan Clark. I give you the latest news and analysis from the state capitol and beyond. Sign up now at capitalconfidential.com. That's capital with an O, confidential.com.
If you're enjoying this podcast, take advantage of all the Times Union has to offer and support our efforts to bring you award-winning journalism by becoming a Times Union subscriber today. Go to timesunion.com/subscribe.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Eagle, a Times Union podcast. I'm Jessica Marshall. There's a new game in town, folks. This week, we learned that a pro basketball team is rising in Schenectady. The New York Phoenix will play at the Schenectady Armory, giving the Albany Patroons a little local competition. Times Union sports reporter Mike Kelly joins me now to talk about that and to give a roundup of other major local sports news. Let's start with the fact that you are, going to be the rising sports editor here at the Times Union. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Michael Kelly. And I've been a sports reporter now at the Times Union since mid-March of this year. Actually started just in time to cover Caitlin Clark and the NCAA tournament.
You started at a good time.
It was just in time. So my first week was awesome. Just covering, at the time what was kind of the biggest sporting event and the most popular athlete in the country. So that was a good start. I came to the Times Union from the Daily Gazette in Schenectady. I worked there for about a decade, and I'm an area local. Grew up in Clifton Park and graduated from Shenendehowa.
Fabulous. And what do you envision for the future of the sports section of the Times-Union? Like, what are your short and long-term goals?
Sure. I mean, obviously it has a really, proud tradition and history, and so the first goal is to maintain that. And then, to really look into, kind of the new ways that we can cover our area's teams and sports, with more of a digital focus. And, just really try to grow what we do and cover, all of our teams that so many people in this area care about.
Obviously, you've been in the thick of things for a while now here in the sports scene in the Capital Region. I want to start by talking about, what's kind of the top headlines? What's the latest news in the kind of pro sports arena? I mean, we got some new teams coming in. We got some new seasons starting. Like, what's going on in pro sports in the region?
Sure. I mean, I think, relatively soon here we have the Albany Firewolves starting up their season. Kind of the big news, though, just of the last week or so has been the announcement of a new team in the area, the New York Phoenix, which is going to be a professional basketball team in Schenectady. They're going to start play this upcoming February. And then as well as the Albany Firebirds, our area's arena football team, which, arena football has it's gone through it these past couple of years.
That's one way to put it, right? One way.
Yeah, it's been a newsworthy enterprise. Their schedule for next season just got announced this past week. They're entering a new league. It'll be their third league in 3 seasons.
The Firebirds back in the 80s and 90s, maybe? I don't know the exact timeline, but it was at least the 90s when the Firebirds were the arena football team in Albany previously, right?
Correct. I mean, the Albany Firebirds were, arguably the team of the 90s in the area. I mean, it would either be the Firebirds or the River Rats. I was growing up in Clifton Park. I was a big fan of both teams. Kind of the heyday of arena football. The name got brought back this past year, kind of rekindled, some of that fandom for some folks from that era.
Yeah, it is kind of a nostalgia factor. And it's funny because we, at the time when, we first kind of reported that there was going to be another arena football team coming, in the wake of the Albany Empire, we kind of put out to our audience, like, what do you think this new team should be named? And we got some pretty wacky suggestions, some really fun suggestions, but it all really came down in the end to everybody kind of wanting to see that Firebirds name come back. So do you think that was kind of part of why they're the Firebirds?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really interesting to see this past year just how much, it's decades later since when that team was really popular, but, just kind of that name and that brand, there was still so much love for it in the area. You really saw that this past season where that was, we talked about the Empire a second ago. That ended really poorly. That turned off a lot of people. It should have turned away a lot of fans. Bringing back kind of this name. I mean, you mentioned nostalgia before. Bringing back kind of that type of act. Really helped that franchise get kind of jump started. Just because it's just such a popular thing in the area.
So we got lots to look forward to next March. That'll be exciting. But in the meantime, in February, you mentioned that the New York Phoenix are going to start up. Tell us about that team and what we can expect with them.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of a surprise this week. I don't think that there was a lot out there about kind of the expectation that there might be another new team in the area. But basically what happened is the Rebecca and Sam Clifford, who used to be involved in running the Albany Patroons, again, one of our kind of long running franchise names in our region. They left that team after last season, and now they've started a new team, the New York Phoenix, which is going to be based in downtown Schenectady. They're going to play in the same league as the Patroons, which is called the very aptly named the Basketball League.
Wow, they really nailed it with the branding there, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's weird when you have to, from my vantage point, when you have to write that into a story, it's a little too on brand. But yeah, so they're going to be playing downtown Schenectady. There'll be a local rivalry between those two teams. And they start up probably late February is kind of the projected start of that season, and they play for a few months. Kind of as the college basketball season is really heating up with March Madness, and then there's a little bit of a lull after that.
Gotcha. Now, where are they going to play? What's their home kind of stadium court?
It's kind of funny because in Albany, the Patroons play at the Armory on Washington Ave, and the Phoenix are going to play at the Armory in Schenectady on Washington Ave.
Armory to Armory. Gotcha.
Yeah, so some real similarities between the teams in that regard, and so they'll be very much downtown Schenectady. Something that if you're in the heart of the city, you'll be able to get to pretty easily. And should be a unique venue for sports over there.
I look forward to that. All right, one more question. What about soccer? There was some talk about a soccer team and some plans for a potential soccer stadium. Like, where are we with that? Is that even happening still?
I mean, so there has not been a lot of news on that front since, there was kind of a rollout of that as an idea. It's part of a much larger project in downtown Albany, related to kind of some like redevelopment of part of the city. So there hasn't been anything new on that. I think there's still hopes that it will happen. There hasn't been anything that's come out that said it won't happen. But that's, probably at this point, we're probably a couple of years obviously down the line, just with construction as well of that facility that they'd have to build.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned for any news that comes out of that as well. Let's go now to high school sports, where we could talk for 3 podcast episodes about high school sports, but kind of give us a 35,000 foot view of the high school sports scene lately in the Capital Region.
Sure. Well, we just crowned, a number of, state champions in a variety of sports other than football. Whereas football, just had its Section 2 championships this past weekend. The big winners from this past weekend, in order of going, classes from biggest to smallest, CBA, Averill Park, Glens Falls, Schuylerville, and Greenwich. Probably most notable within that group for CBA, it's 4 championships in a row. So that dynasty rolls on. And then on the other side of things, Averill Park, first ever championship. Which is a little bit, it's a little bit unique for them, just with, they are one of the better programs in our area at that level. They're always, they're pretty successful. They've made a bunch of championship games. They made 2 in the past couple of years, but this was their first time breaking through and winning it.
Well, that's really exciting. I know high school sports is kind of a monster for us. We do a lot of coverage of high school sports, across a lot of divisions. So it's really exciting when they're all winning, right?
Yeah. And you say all winning, and, probably our area's, most dominant team of the season was the Burnt Hills field hockey team. Undefeated season. I think the stat is they only allowed 4 goals all year. And they just wrapped up their latest state championship this past weekend. And they're a really interesting story with Coach Kelly Vroman, where, Burnt Hills, across a variety of sports, very successful, but, they're not one of our biggest schools in the area. But their field hockey team has become, kind of unquestionably that's the top field hockey program in our area, kind of regardless of size. And, this was perhaps their best ever season.
That's excellent. Now, of course, we're going to gear up for kind of the winter sports season, right? Or the winter trimester of sports in high school sports land, right?
Yeah, I believe that high school winter sports actually already started with practices, because there is this overlap. And, the joke amongst, the people who cover it and the people who coach it is that winter sports start, they start 1 week earlier every year, it feels like.
They're encroaching.
Yeah. So we had, basketball teams are already, working out on the courts, and, there will be games before too long in the winter as well here.
Well, that's exciting. We'll look forward to that. Mike, thank you so much for joining me here on the Eagle.
Thanks a lot for having me.
You can check out all of the latest scores and sports news at timesunion.com/sports. That's it for this week. The Eagle is a production of the Times-Union. It's produced and edited by myself, Jessica Marshall, with help from the Times-Union digital team and the newsroom. Our music is Flyin' by Top Floor. Special thanks to Steve Barnes and Mike Kelly for their contributions to this episode. Questions or comments? Please email us at podcast@timesunion.com. Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times-Union podcast driven by CDTA.